Have you ever thought that a simple eye screw could become a homemade welding tool? It may sound unusual, but sometimes the best ideas come from the simplest items in the toolbox. In this video, I'll show you how I did it. Next, I have an old phone charger. Instead of throwing it away, we can reuse the charger's casing as a handle for the homemade welding device. The circuit board inside the charger doesn't seem necessary for this project, but instead of throwing it away, I'll keep it for another recycling video in the near future. I plan to secure the eye screw to the charger casing by drilling a small hole just large enough to hold it in place. The goal is for the eye screw to serve as the welding tip, while also keeping the structure of the homemade welder stable and solid. This is a single core wire made of multiple copper strands twisted together. It will be used to connect the handheld welding device to the positive terminal of the power source. With this set of bolts and metal rings, the connection between the welding head and the tip will be very strong and secure. To connect the welding tip to the bolt body, I'll reuse the metal connector inside this electrical terminal block as an intermediate piece. The metal part is thick, sturdy, and conducts electricity well, which helps hold the tip firmly in place while ensuring stable current flow to the welding tip. An interesting option for making a homemade soldering tip is to reuse the carbon rod inside an old AA battery. When depleted batteries are thrown away carelessly, they can cause environmental harm because they still contain metals and chemicals that may pollute soil and water sources. Over time, the battery casing can corrode, allowing these substances to leak into the environment. That's why reusing and recycling usable parts from old batteries is a small but meaningful way to help reduce waste. The carbon rod inside the battery has good heat resistance and stable electrical conductivity, which makes it suitable as a simple soldering tip for small DIY projects. By removing the carbon rod, cleaning it, and cutting it to the desired size, we can give a discarded battery component a second life instead of letting it become environmental waste. As for the other end of this wire, I'll deal with it later, after attaching a homemade welding tip to the remaining port of the connector to complete the connection. This is an alligator clip, a small but very familiar accessory in electrical and DIY work. With its spring-loaded design and metal jaws, it can grip wires or metal surfaces firmly, making quick and convenient electrical connections. In this project, the alligator clip will be used to connect the homemade welding device to the remaining terminal of the power source, making the setup more flexible and easier to use. I will also make another tool to connect to the negative terminal of the power source. Its structure is quite simple, a short piece of wire with an alligator clip attached to each end. This design makes it easy to clip onto the power source and the workpiece while keeping the electrical connection secure during use. The power source I plan to use for this homemade welding device is a spare battery from a cordless drill. This type of battery provides a stable voltage and suitable power output, which is enough to run the device while keeping the setup compact and practical. Don't worry about it. The homemade welding tip is just a bit damp, so it simply needs a moment for the heat to dry it out. I'll run a few simple tests on small metal pieces without damaging them, so you can get a clearer idea of how effective this device really is. So don't miss it, and make sure to watch until the end. There's a very common reason why an LED bulb stops working that many people tend to overlook. An electrical overload can cause one of the LED chips to burn out. When this happens, instead of trying to repair it or looking for guidance from someone experienced, many people simply throw the whole bulb in the trash. Personally, I find that quite wasteful. So in this video, I'll also show you a simple soldering method to repair an LED bulb, giving it a second life instead of discarding it. After removing the LED bulb cover, place the bulb back into the socket so you can locate the faulty LED chip by using a test screwdriver to check it. During this step, be very careful to avoid electric shock, as safety here is extremely important. Next, I will apply solder to bridge the position of the damaged LED chip. When one LED chip in the series burns out, the electrical current can no longer pass through the entire circuit, causing the whole bulb to stop working. By adding a small solder bridge across the two contact points of the failed chip, the current can bypass that spot and continue flowing to the remaining LED chips. This allows the bulb to work again without replacing the entire LED board. And the LED repair demonstration you just saw also serves as the final step of the last experiment from the small test in this video. You can see that a homemade welding tool built from very simple materials can still work quite effectively for basic repair tasks. With just an eye screw, a few pieces of wire, and some recycled parts, we were able to create a compact yet practical tool. That's one of the most interesting things about DIY projects. Sometimes the items we think are useless can actually be repurposed in a completely new way. Not only does this save money, but reusing old components also reduces electronic waste and helps protect the environment. I hope this video gives you an interesting idea to try, or at least a different perspective on making use of old items. If you enjoy simple but practical DIY projects like this, stay tuned, because I still have many more creative ideas to share in future videos.